So appetizers are one of those concepts that are kind of tough to translate between cultures. Italian antipasto is different from Korean banchan, which is in turn also different from the American massive plate of shared fried stuff. To us, there's two different Chinese concepts that could be thought of as an appetizer. First, in a traditional Chinese banquet, there's lungpan, cold dishes, which could include something like Cantonese white-cut chicken, or up in the Shanghai region, drunken crab, that kind of thing. Then there's also kai wei cai, which you can see served in one form or another at like almost every Chinese restaurant. These are basically just a small bowl or two of little snacks that you can munch on along with tea or beer before the meal starts. So we wanted to show you how to make those snacks. These can be different in different regions, but some of the most common would probably be some fried peanut or peas, one of the multitude of Chinese pickles, which we'll show you with some quick pickled daikon, or a Liangban cold dish, which we'll show you with muar wood ear mushroom, but also give you a recipe for an all-purpose Liangban sauce that you can top over pretty much anything. That said, if you did come here looking for something that would fit as a larger American-style appetizer, honestly, feel free to use basically like any Chinese dish. Because most Chinese food's meant to be shared, if you look at recipes online, tons of Chinese dishes that decidedly aren't appetizers here tend to be categorized and tagged as appetizers, so go nuts. But today, we wanted to focus on stuff that was actually true Chinese kai wei cai. First up, Liangban cold dishes. We'll be using muar wood ear mushrooms for this, but know that you could really use whatever vegetable you wanted. Smashed cucumber, slices of kelp, so totally get creative. This dish relies on this sauce, which is an all-purpose Liangban sauce. It can be made well in advance, so let's start there. That sauce then, at its core, is 4 parts light soy sauce, so here 4 tablespoons, 2 parts or 2 tablespoons of dark Chinese vinegar, 1 part oyster sauce, 1 part sugar, and 2 tablespoons worth or about 4 cloves of garlic, finely minced. We'll also be tossing in 1 fresh heaven-facing chili, sliced into half-centimeter pieces, and feel free to sub in Thai bird's eye here, and also about 2 sprigs of cilantro. We'll be using half of that in the sauce and eyeball the remaining chopped quantity to top off the final dish. So just mix together the soy sauce, the vinegar, and the oyster sauce, then mix in that tablespoon of sugar and season with a 1/4 teaspoon salt and an optional but recommended sprinkle of MSG. Then toss in the garlic, the chili, and half your chopped cilantro. Top it off with a half tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, mix well, and that's it. Wrap it up, toss in the fridge, and use any time in the next couple days or so. Now we'll be mixing that with 30 grams of muar wood ear mushroom, which is one of my personal favorites for Liangban dishes. This stuff is almost always sold dried, either loose like this or compressed in a tiny little box. So reconstitute those with cool water. You can get away with soaking those for as little as 30 minutes, but they'll end up fluffier if you go for longer, so we went 3 hours in all. After that time, thoroughly rinse your mushrooms. Now depending on how large your muar is, you might want to rip the muar into more bite-sized pieces. Most of ours are basically bite-sized as is, but you do want to check for some larger pieces like this one and tear them once or twice. Then, to a pot of boiling water, toss in the mushrooms. Blanch those for 3 minutes, then transfer over to a bowl of cool water to stop the cooking process. Now, we'll be refrigerating these, but the timing will be totally up to you. I personally like my Liangban dishes quite cool, so I would keep it in there for at least 3 hours. But you could go as little as 15 minutes, or at the other extreme, up to a day. So drain that and toss in the fridge. Assembly, then, is as easy as you think it would be. But obviously, if you're using the sauce for some other vegetable, you'll need to eyeball it and see what feels right. Generally speaking, you'll want enough that there's a slight pool of sauce at the bottom of the bowl, and it's usually better to add too much than add too little. So then just sprinkle on some more of your chopped cilantro for extra soapiness, and your Liangban muar is done. So right, fried peanuts. If you did a comprehensive survey of all the restaurants in China, I'd probably guess that the most common appetizers would be either these guys or fried peas. The fried peas are generally purchased in bagged form. I really did want to figure out how to make these guys from scratch for you, but unfortunately there's not a ton of information out there because, again, restaurants usually just purchase the bag. The fried peanuts might seem less interesting at first blush, but the technique that's used is really quite cool. Those peanuts do rely on some seasoned salt though, so let's start there. So toss 2 tablespoons of salt to a pan and heat that up over a medium flame. We want the salt to be hot enough that it'd be uncomfortable to touch. So still not hot enough yet, but about 2 minutes ended up doing the trick on our stove. Then shut off the heat and add in a teaspoon of 5-spice powder. Quick mix, then take it out. For the peanuts then, I see a lot of people soak these in hot water first, but they really don't need it. The key is to start the peanuts in a cool wok with cool oil. You want enough oil that it'll submerge the peanuts. So for our 250 grams of peanuts, that was touch over a cup of oil for this wok. Now swap the flame to a low heat and let that slowly come up to temperature. At first, this won't need too much maintenance. Just stir every 3 to 4 minutes to make sure none of the peanuts are scorching at the bottom. Then, after about 10 minutes or so, you should see a more hefty bubbling from the peanuts, which means that the oil's up to over 100 Celsius and that the peanuts are expelling their moisture. At this point, try to be a bit more active here. Keep a watchful eye, slowly stir more or less constantly, and after a few minutes start to taste them. The peanut will still be soft. You're just looking for something that tastes cooked. Getting there took about 8 minutes more with this batch. So transfer those over to an oven sheet and spread them out. Sprinkle over some of your seasoned salt. Apologies, but we won't be using up all of that. It's just really awkward to make small batches of stuff. And let that sit until crunchy and cooled down completely. So then just transfer over to a bowl, ideally a bit more elegantly than I did, and you've got yourself some fried peanuts, just like they make at the restaurants. Lastly, pickles. Now before we get started, we didn't want this to be our pickle video. See, most pickles in China are the lacto-fermented sort. You toss some vegetables in a big jar like this and let them ferment over weeks or even months. We will get to that eventually, but in the meantime, we wanted to show you a quick 24 to 48 hour pickle, and I'll leave some links to the lacto-fermented sort down in the description box. We do quite like this Cantonese pickle though. It's completely dead easy and makes for a great kai wei xiao cai. So we'll be using half a daikon for this. So first peel your daikon, then slice that hot dog style and cut them into half-centimeter semicircles like so. Now, you could stop there, but to let the pickling juice infuse into them better, make little cuts into the daikon, slice that in half, then continue with the rest. This cut is called comb shape in Chinese cooking, and another benefit is that it looks like it takes way more impressive knife skills than it actually does. So then just toss those in a bowl and sprinkle over about a half teaspoon of salt. This process will purge some of the excess moisture, just like it does coleslaw, and it'll also remove some of the harsh raw taste of the daikon. So let that sit for about 5 minutes, and after that time, you should see a little puddle of water in the bottom of the bowl. Then transfer over to a strainer, thoroughly wash the salt off, and spread that all in one evenish layer. Let that dry for at least 2 hours. Now for the pickling liquid. To a box, first add in 250 grams of sugar and dissolve that with 250 grams of distilled water. This is going to feel like a lot of sugar, but the type of quick pickle that we're making is actually the sweet and sour sort. Mix until dissolved, then add in 50 grams of dark Chinese vinegar, 50 grams of rice vinegar, 40 grams of light soy sauce, 30 grams of dark soy sauce for color, and an optional but recommended teaspoon of fish sauce, which does make a rare cameo in southern Chinese cooking. Then toss in about 2 cloves worth of minced garlic, an inch and a half of minced ginger, and an optional but recommended 1 fresh heaven-facing or Thai bird's eye chili. So then once your daikon slices are dry on the surface, you can toss them in the pickling liquid and leave them in the fridge for 24 hours. To get a sense of what they'll look like, this was a batch from yesterday. They'll have obviously deepened in color and taken most of the flavor of the liquid. So with that, just toss in a bowl and serve, whether as a snack or, of course, as an appetizer.
So what we did in the video is restaurant appetizers. Like many families in the West, Chinese families often don't have appetizers. Mine doesn't, but some of my friends from Jiangnan, Shanghai, and Nanjing region, they will have boiled peanuts and edamames to munch before and during the meal. We also see people have pickles lying around. So this totally just depends on the family or the restaurant. So right, check out the link in the description box for detailed recipe. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon. And of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.